Welcome to a Florida State week edition. Well, it's not really a week left. It's Friday. Tomorrow's a game. But nonetheless, it is Florida State tomorrow night at the Rock. We are ready, my friends, here at the MIA All Day Podcast. Welcome to the MIA All Day Podcast on this special rivalry game edition. There is no love lost here on the pod for Florida State. I do respect them as opponents. I do not like them, but I do respect them, unlike the hated Florida Gators. But we will not even bring that disgusting animal into question, into the conversation on today's show. We will focus our disdain for the Knowles, the semi-holes, as we like to call them on occasion, and other more tasteful language, more tasteful descriptors that we use for those hated people up north in Tallahassee, Florida. So, what do we got going on today on the pod? Well, I'm going to give you a mini breakdown on the game. Going to give you some information about it, how I think it should go, talk about the series a little bit, maybe give you some of my favorite moments throughout this rivalry over time, over my lifetime as a Canes fan. Moments that I feel have been very iconic in the series. And yes, maybe it hasn't been the greatest season for either team thus far. Canes coming in at 4-4. Florida State coming in at 5-3. Neither team trending towards a special season, obviously. Both mired in mediocrity. But none of that matters Saturday night. Because when you put that ball down and those two teams line up across from each other, that game gets intense. This is more than just a game. This is about legacy. This is what your college career comes down to. Aside from winning conference championships and national championships and all that kind of stuff, the most important thing as a player and as a fan base is, did you beat your rival that season? How many times did you beat your rival throughout your career? Were you able to get the upper hand on those hated Seminoles? And were you able to talk trash for years? And that's what we want to get to. Miami had won 4 in a row. We had the hiccup last year, which led to the eventual domino effect of getting Mario Cristobal here, which we were all happy and excited about at first. Now it's gotten a little bit rough. Obviously, Mario will get through these rough patches. We believe in him. But none of that matters again. This is the game of the season more than any other because it's Florida State. And let me tell you, just from a season-long perspective for Mario specifically, I think winning this game against Florida State, beating your rival in a game in which you are the underdog, a heavy underdog. I think it's 8.5 points, somewhere around there right now. At home in front of your fan base after you've lost 3 games in a row at home. Lost to Duke at home, lost to Middle Tennessee at home, lost to Carolina at home. But those Middle Tennessee and Duke losses kind of smear the campaign for the season and have turned the trajectory of the season around into something that none of us in the fan base expected, and I'm sure no one on the coaching staff really anticipated. So beating Florida State, I think it's critical for easing some of those woes, putting a Band-Aid on some of those wounds, making it feel better. And I'm here to give you a nice little scenario, wrap that up with a nice little bow. If the Canes beat Florida State and they're able to finish the season 7-5, saying, let's say their only loss the remainder of the way is to Clemson, can you see a scenario, which I do, because there's plenty of tie-ins where this could happen, where Florida also ends up in that 7-5, 6-6 range, and the Canes get a chance to play the Gators in a bowl game? And then the Canes go in there and get a chance to win the state title. And yes, it would be a disappointing season compared to what the expectations were coming in. But if you finish 8-5, having beaten Florida and Florida State in the same season, and that's the last image the fan base gets in their head is beating the Gators going into the offseason, we're sailing into it on a high note, baby. And I'll take it. And I think Mario understands the importance of this game, having been a player and a coach in this series. He understands it from a recruiting perspective. He knows what winning these games means in terms of recruiting battles. And he knows what this means in terms of bowl positioning moving forward and bowl eligibility. Because if they don't win this one, it gets a little dicey now with 3 to play. You got Clemson, Pitt, and Georgia Tech. And that Pitt and Georgia Tech game either of those games could go 50-50. Either one of those are a coin toss at this point, right? Probably losing against Clemson. More than likely losing against Clemson. 90% sure we're losing against Clemson, right? But we'll see what happens, man. If you can get to 7-5, if you could beat the hated Knowles and then somehow find a way to play the Gators in a bowl game and get that state sweep, I think Mario goes off into this offseason riding on a high. The program's feeling good. We forget about Middle Tennessee for the most part. It'll still be there. It'll be lingering. You know how it is. We don't forget Louisiana Tech and FIU. But that's the way you bounce back and push forward into the offseason on a positive note. So there you have it. That's my mental that's me putting it out into the universe, into the ether, wanting Miami to play Florida in a bowl game and beat Florida State and Florida in the same season to make up for the crappiness of this year, the way it's gone this far. But now, let us get into the nitty-gritty of the matchup. So, if I had to choose one thing to define Florida State's offense in this game, one word, it would be explosive. And what do I mean by that? Does that mean they make a lot of big plays? Yes. Does it mean they have playmakers that make big plays and can break long runs and bust long catches? Yes, all of that. But I'm going to give you some numbers to identify how much Florida State relies on the explosive play. It's not just that they are an explosive team, but they rely on that. And if they can't get explosive plays, they're a different football team. Or if they can get explosive plays, there's a weakness. There's a chink in the armor, baby. A little thing I uncovered here that holds possibly the key to winning this game. All right? Stay tuned. I'm not going to tease it too much. I'm just going to hit you with it. All right, here we go. So, Florida State is currently second in the country in terms of plays that go for at least 20 yards from scrimmage. What does that mean? That means they are second in the country in producing plays of 20 yards or more. Okay, from scrimmage. That's a lot. That means they're explosive, right? But that doesn't mean they're not number one in the country in scoring, though. Scoring offense. They are actually in the country 50th in points per game at 32.1. So what does that mean? They're getting explosive plays, but that doesn't necessarily always equal points. We're going to keep going on that theme, and I'm going to keep going down the numbers and showing you stuff. So number 4 in explosive runs, meaning runs of 10, 15 plus yards, right? They're fourth in the country in that category. They're 12th in yards per play. So they're explosive, right? They're 16th in yards per completion. Really good number. Jordan Travis, he's a key to this game as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They are 16th in yards per completion. They are 15th in third down conversions. And they're 21st in first quarter points. So here are some keys that we can identify right away. But first, let me give you one more number. And this is a number that I think this is the key I was talking about. This is the part of the game here that we could slide it in. I'm giving you a dramatic pause because you know what I'm doing here. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let it hang. There, I did it again. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not trying to do this. It just works this way. Sorry. So this is where the Hurricanes can get in and really change this game and flip it in their favor. All those are great stats when it comes to explosiveness, right? For Florida State, explosive plays, very dynamic. You expect an offense to put a lot of points up on the board when they are that explosive, yet they're 50th in the country when it comes to points per game. They don't turn the ball over a lot. So what is it? They are 118th in red zone scoring percentage. 118th in red zone scoring percentage. That means they are not a good red zone team. They are not scoring touchdowns and they are not scoring field goals within the red zone. They are scoring very few of them. So what does this mean for the Hurricanes? If you can come into this game and play bend but don't break defense, meaning have the ball caught in front of you, secure tackles, right? If you give up a big play, make sure it's an immediate tackle after the big play, or make sure you get them down without letting them score. Make them earn the final few yards to get in that end zone. Because if you do that, there's a good chance that Florida State's going to shoot themselves in the foot, right? They're going to pick up penalties to push them back. They're going to turn the ball over. They're going to try and score run it on fourth down or try and score on fourth down and not convert. They're going to miss field goals. This is what they've done all season. based on the numbers. So as a Hurricane defense, your main goal is, all right, number one, we're going to look for these explosive plays. We're going to try and cut that out. We're going to be deep over the top. Let them catch the ball in front of us. Everybody swarm to the football, corral the ball carrier, get them down. That's number one, right? Number two is if we give up a big play, make sure we pursue, make sure we get them down, and let's live to play another play, and let's make these guys earn those points in the red zone in the goal line area. There's your opportunity on defense, okay? There's your opportunity to slow this explosive offense down, to pour some water on the gasoline. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, to be quite honest. I know with a grease fire, you want to cover it. You definitely don't want to pour water on a grease fire because then that gets out of control. I've seen enough episodes of ridiculousness to know. Okay, I'm trained. I'm not a firefighter. I'm not a fire expert. But I can tell you this: I've seen enough episodes of ridiculousness that if you pour water on a grease fire, you are just creating more fire. Okay? Do not do that. That is a bad situation. Cover that thing. Put it out. Suffocate it. Suffocate it like the Hurricanes defense needs to suffocate Florida State. Look at that. How about that? How about that for a little through line for you, huh? Connective tissue, my friends, here on the podcast. That's what I'm giving you today. All right? So the gist of my little rant here is basically that. Yes, they have explosive players. They have made explosive plays. They have dangerous weapons. Okay? We can start with Jordan Travis. We can start with Johnny Wilson, but I want to start with the running backs here for Florida State. Okay? Florida State's running backs. First of all, Trayshawn Ward has missed 2 games for the Seminoles this year, but he's coming back against the Canes. So we better be ready because Trayshawn Ward's a pretty good ball player. He's got 488 yards in 6 games, 6.8 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. Okay? The guy's a dangerous player. He's also a good return man. Trey Benson is the problem. He's a guy who stepped in for Florida State, and he's got how many yards? My screen is loading here. He's got 483 yards on 72 carries, 6.7 yards a carry. But here's the thing that makes this guy dangerous and makes Trayshawn Ward dangerous as well. Trey Benson, although he has, he's got about the same amount of carries as Trayshawn Ward. He's got 11 runs of 15 or more yards. Trayshawn Ward has 9. Lawrence Toafile has 6. So these guys are explosive. Okay. They have, percentage-wise, okay, and I'm going to give you a little stat here that you may not have heard of. Okay, this is on PFF. It's called Bay, and I'm not talking about Beyonce or your girlfriend or anything like that. Okay, it's not for single ladies. Bay is basically rushing yardage on design attempts that go for 15 or more yards. Okay, so rushing yards accumulated on runs that end up going for 15 or more yards. So basically, how many yards do they collect on big runs, on explosive runs? Trey Benson has 277 yards. Mind you, he's got 483 total for the season, but he's got 277 of those on rushes of 15 or more yards. So 57% of his yardage comes from explosive runs. Trayshawn Ward, he's got 247 of his 488 yards coming from rushes of 15 or more yards. That's 50.6%. Why is that important? Because that means that these guys are generating more than half of their yardage on explosive runs of 15 or more yards. As a defense, when Florida State runs the football, it's got to be swarming to the ball, contact, get them down, and do not let them break tackles. Trayshawn Ward, okay? Here's a little stat about Trayshawn Ward. I'll give it to you really quick as notifications are going off on my computer because I'm supposed to still be working. And I'm not doing it because I'm doing the pod. I got to get out to you guys. I got to do it. So, Trayshawn Ward is top 10 in the country in terms of missed tackles forced. How many missed tackles has Trayshawn Ward produced? I would tell you if I could find the number now. I got it here. 49. Okay, 49. How many attempts does Trayshawn Ward have in the season? I mean, sorry, that's Trey Benson. My fault. Trey Benson. I said Trayshawn Ward a whole lot there. I confused the shit out of you guys, but it's actually Trey Benson that is top 10 in the country in missed tackles forced. Okay, he's got 49 forced missed tackles. on 72 of attempts. So more than half of his carries, he's forcing a missed tackle. That is dangerous. So with that guy especially, you got to get multiple guys to the ball. You got to get him down. That's going to be critical for the success of the defense. Same thing with Trayshawn Ward. You got to get guys to the football, more than one guy, and you got to get them down. You got to be secure in your tackling, because if you can do that, you could limit their explosiveness in the run game and on offense. Their run game will go nowhere if you limit them to 5-6 yards on one, 7-8 on another. Don't let them pop the big one. If you slow them down enough, it'll turn into a plodding run game for them, and you'll be able to slow that offense down. So let's talk about the engine that makes this offense go. Jordan Travis. This guy's come a long way. And unfortunately, I believe that the progress that he's made really kicked off against us last year. He really became a more confident passer following that game, and it's shown this season. He's got 2,055 yards, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks, 8.7 yards an attempt. Really good numbers for him, okay? Let's take a look at the depth and direction of his throws, shall we? So 18% roughly of his throws are 20 plus yards. He's throwing basically 62% of his throws, of his completions, 62% are within 0 to 19 yards. So in that short to intermediate range, that's where 62% of his passes are going, okay? He's got 676 yards in that 10 to 19 range, 451 in that 0 to 9 range, but he's got 684 in that 20 plus range. Okay, that's 684 on only 20 completions. That's 16.3 yards per attempt. What does that mean? That means he doubles his average yards per attempt when he throws the ball deep. He completes 47.6% of his deep balls, which is impressive. It's not great, but it's really good. Okay, that's where he's grown as a passer, really his deep ball and his accuracy underneath. And that intermediate range, he's throwing 51.4%, which is okay. That short range, he's really gotten better. He's highly efficient at 74%. All right. One of the things about Travis is we know he's a slippery dude. All right. He's going to be in that pocket. He's going to move around. When you bring pressure, he's going to duck you. He's going to slip you. He's going to spin, and he's going to try and continue the play and keep it alive, or break the pocket and pick up yards with his legs. When he's kept clean, he's got a 69.3 completion percentage. All right. For 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 pick. When he's under pressure, this is the key. When he's under pressure, his completion percentage dips to 43.8%. Only got 428 yards there. Only 5.9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. That means the Canes have to get after his ass. All right. And I think this is an advantage because when he's blitzed, he's effective. He's not great, but he's highly effective when he's blitzed. He's got a 59.8% completion percentage, 838 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, and an 8.6 yards per attempt stat line when he is blitzed. Okay, so that means, again, we're seeing this dichotomy, this counterintuitive thing that he's bad when he's under pressure, but he's really good when he's blitzed. So that means that if you blitz, you better get home. Because if they pick it up, he's going to pick you apart. It makes it easier for him. It reduces his reads. He finds his guys. He throws it up to Johnny Wilson on those one-on-ones, and that's where they hurt you. But if the Hurricanes can do what they've been doing with their front four, which is pressure, right? Pressure with the front four, get at the quarterback, and make plays that way without having to blitz, which I believe Miami right now is 112th in the country in blitz rate. We are one of the teams that blitzes the fewest in the country, but our defensive line is second in sack rate and 4th in pressure rate in the country. So what that means is we're getting great pressure from that front four, and that needs to continue. We need to get up in Jordan Travis's face, use the front four to get in his face, and basically play a similar game plan as to what they had for Derek May. Spy the quarterback, play cover 2, cover 3 behind it, use that front four, and blitz rarely on occasion where you feel you can really get home with that blitz and create havoc because you've caught Florida State off guard, right? So the opportunity is there because Florida State is not a great pass blocking team. Their starting guard, Dylan Gibbons. Dylan Gabriel used to play quarterback for UCF, then went to Oklahoma, and God knows what he's doing now. I don't know. Dylan Gibbons is a 69.4 pass blocker. That's their best pass blocker on the offensive line. Everybody else, 61.5, 65.1, 53.1, 59.7, 45.9. They are not a great pass blocking team. They are average at best. Okay? They are average at best. They have given up 87 pressures this season, and they've given up only 4 sacks. That means the reason why that happens is that's a shit ton of pressures, guys. 87 is a lot of pressures. 4 sacks is not a lot. And the reason for that is because Jordan Travis is very slippery and elusive. So you gotta not only get up in his face, you only not collapse a pocket, but you also have to stay disciplined in your rush lanes and not allow him to break loose. Okay, that's the difficulty with this. So the Canes have an opportunity here if they can get in Travis's face, if they could keep their rush lanes, if they could be effective by breaking the pocket down, they can attack him and really take advantage of this average offensive line. How are they run blocking? They're okay. They're not great, but they're better than they were last year. Best run blocker is a 67.9, which is Dimitri Emmanuel. Dylan Gibbons again a 62.8. Everybody else 62.7, 66.7, 60.2. So they are okay as a run blocking unit. So their offensive line is okay. It's average, not great, and that's where the opportunities lie. Okay. The Hurricanes, like I said, need to limit the big play. If they can't limit the big play, make sure they get these guys down after a big play and make them earn it all the way down the field. So don't give up explosive plays that are basically explosive plays into touchdowns. You want to give up if you give up an explosive play, you want to get them down immediately and make them earn the rest, earn those points by fighting for the rest of it, and by finishing off the drives. You want to turn it into a slogfest in the red zone. Okay, you want to let Florida State shoot themselves in the foot. You want to try and limit explosive plays in the run game. If they bust a 5 or 6 yarder, make sure you get them down. You want to gang tackle, swarm to the football, be sure in your tackling. Okay, be good in pursuit, and you want to corral Jordan Travis in the pocket. You want to break that pocket down, stay disciplined in your rush lanes, and attack him and get him down and don't let him slip by you. He's going to make plays. There's no question about it. Jordan Travis is going to evade Hurricane rushers at some point in this game. Jordan Travis is going to spin, he's going to move, he's going to slide, he's going to get away, and he's going to extend plays. What you don't want him to do is extend those plays and make a throw down the field because he's extended it so much that somebody has broken wide open down the field, or he picks up huge yardage with his legs. Okay? So, who are the receiving threats for Florida State? Listen, man. You got to know about 6'7" Johnny Wilson. Okay? That is their guy. Johnny Wilson leads the team in targets with 55. The next guy is Micah Pittman. He's only got 37 targets. Okay? That is a huge amount of targets. Johnny Wilson's got 603 yards, 4 touchdowns, averages 20.1 yards per carry. They just toss it to this dude. All right? They just toss it to this dude, and he goes up and gets it. Ontario Wilson is the second leading receiver. He's got 320 yards in the season. Micah Pittman has 288. Both solid guys. Pittman's a slot guy. Cam McDonald, athletic tight end. Seen him the last couple of years. He's got 209 yards receiving. Good blocker as well. I think, like I said, man, you got to play cover 3, cover 2, stay in zone. Don't man these guys up. Keep everything in front of you. All right. And you got to be aware of where number 14. You can't miss him. Obviously, he's 6'7". All right. You can't miss Johnny Wilson. Everywhere he goes, you got to be aware of where he is, because they're just going to jump ball it to him. All right. That's the way they operate their offense. That's the way they do things. I would too if I had a 6'7" receiver that could run and catch. Maybe Colby Young can turn it around for us in that aspect, right? Let's see what happens. All right. So what do the Hurricanes need to do on offense? Who are the guys to look for on the Florida State defense? But before we do that, before we get into that, as we are in our halftime situation here on the podcast, I said I would give you some of my top moments in this rivalry as a fan during my lifetime. And they may not be exactly the same as everybody else's, because we all have some of the same ones. But I'm going to give you some memories of mine that really stick out in my head. 1992 in the Orange Bowl, right? That wide right game. I'm walking in with my older brother and his friend, and we're coming in through the tunnel, and we're running a little bit late. And as the first thing I see, and this memory is still vivid, as I'm walking in, is I'm seeing Tamarick Vanover take that opening kickoff and run it all the way back against the Hurricanes. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, what is happening here? Where's this game going to go? We are already down 7-0, and this game just kicked off. That is not a good sign. But as it would turn out, that would lead into another one of my favorite memories. Eventually, Tamarick Vanover would try and run a little screen route, an under route, in front of Michael Barrow in that same game. And Michael Barrow would absolutely decapitate Tamarick Vanover, and the crowd would go insane. Yes, Florida State would get a similar hit later in the game, but Michael Barrow's hit on Tamarick Vanover, to me, is one of the greatest hits in Hurricane history, and it is a beautiful memory. Another special memory for me is my wife and I have been married for 17 years. We've known each other for about 19, 20 years. One of our early dates was I took her to the 2003, was it 03? Yeah, I believe it was 03. The 2000, no, it was the 2004 game. I'm sorry. The 2004 Miami Florida State game in the Orange Bowl, the one that ended in overtime. One of her first dates, had a great time. She had never been to a Hurricanes football game before, and your boy took her to Florida State. How about that? All right, that's when I knew I had her, because she enjoyed it, she loved it, and she's a huge Canes fan also. So she had never gone to a Hurricanes game. Took her to the Orange Bowl to see Florida State Miami. Can't beat that, man. Can't beat that. That's why your boy got in. That's why I'm still in. That's why she puts up with me. Anyway, in that game, man, it's memorable because it was so boring for so long. Hurricanes being down 10-3, like it seemed like almost forever the entire game. I was passing out in the stands just because I had a little bit too much liquid encouragement in the tailgate. And then the last series of the game, it starts, and it's like, wow, okay, we start driving. Boom, boom, boom. Then that play where Brock Berlin hits Sonoris Moss on the screen, and he goes, man, and scores that touchdown and sends that thing into overtime. And then that first play, Frank Gore, touchdown, crowd goes nuts. And it was just an emotional roller coaster of a game after being so flatlined in terms of emotion for so long, to them being at that peak. It was just incredible and a fantastic time. Another one, of course, 2000. It was Dorsey to Shockey sitting in those stands. I was there with a buddy of mine, my best friend, and it was the hottest game I've ever attended in my life. And to this day, it's probably still the hottest game I've ever attended. At halftime, they ran out of water. I know a lot of people probably have told this story and people know this, but they ran out of water at halftime. And thankfully, we were sitting in the first level under an overhang. So we were in the shade. It wasn't too bad, but I was looking around the stadium, people were passing out from the heat. And they were exhausted and people were going nuts. It was wild. I'd never seen something like that in my life. But like the team and Florida State as well, they sucked it up and played that second half, baby. People were chugging beers and they went after it. They were like, screw it. Listen, we're here. We're up. We're doing this thing. We're going to beat Florida State today. And sure enough, we did. I will not lie and say that a little poopy came out when Florida State attempted that last field goal, because it did. Because I was like, man, this is not what you want. We're finally going to get the monkey off our back. We're finally going to take this team down. All right. And they're number one in the country. And we're going to give this up in the last second after we've been up the whole game. No, I can't go down like this. But thankfully it didn't. Thank you, Florida State, for missing another field goal. So there you have it. All right. Now we get back to Florida State's defense. So Florida State's defense, they've helped themselves out by having a couple transfers. Tatum Bethune, transfer from UCF, their starting linebacker, is a leading tackler on the team, followed by Renardo Green, one of their corners, and Kalen DeLoach is third in tackles. Jamie Robinson, one of their safeties, he likes to stick his nose in it. He's number 10. He likes to come in the box and really fill in the run game. Akeem Dent, their other safety, likes to do the same as well. I think the RPO game should be there if you try and RPO the safeties. If we can establish a running game, first of all, you have the opportunity to really take advantage of these DBs because they like to stick their noses in it. They like to come under and run support. They're long, they're big, they're strong, and they like to be physical. I think because of that, Colby Young is very important in this game as well. Because of their long corners, their long DBs and strong DBs, you may not get the separation that you normally get. Not that we get much separation anyway, but you're not going to get a lot of separation because of their physicality. And if you're going up for jump balls, you better be big and long. And I think that's where Colby Young comes in. He can out muscle, out jump, and attack the football in a way that we don't have anywhere else, and we really didn't have last year. Even though Charleston Rambo went up and got some, he's not that kind of a physical player. I think Colby Young adds that dimension to it. As far as pass rush is concerned, Jared Verse is the guy. He's got 4.5 sacks, 16 pressures on the season. Derek McClendon, their other edge, has 20 pressures and 3 sacks. They are a dynamic duo as it comes when it comes to pass rush. Um, these guys are a good defense. They are not a great defense. Right now, they are averaging giving up 21.9 points per game, which is good for 37th in the country. Defensively, they are giving up 323.5 yards per game, which is not a whole lot. That's a decent amount, but there's still, there's opportunities here for the offense to take advantage. Right now, as far as the ACC ranks are concerned, they're sixth in points per game allowed, and they're third in um, yards per game allowed. So, what do the Hurricanes do here, right? Well, first and foremost, they've got to protect the quarterback, man. The offensive line has to step up because you cannot allow, Jared Verse and his buddy here, Derek McClendon, number 9, by the way, Jared Verse is number 5, to upset the offense and really get the pressure on either Jake Garcia or TVD and disrupt things. You need to be able to protect the quarterback. I think you really need to be able to run the football, man. Again, I've been saying this for weeks, but you gotta be able to run the football to establish the RPO game, to do some things off play action, to help yourself out on offense. Florida State is giving up 145.6 yards per game in terms of rushing defense. It's not a whole lot, and it's not a whole lot of yards, but you got to find a way, man. You got to find a way because at the end of the day, the Hurricanes have faced a lot of teams this year that were bad in terms of rush defense, and they didn't do anything with it. So they got to do something this game. So Florida State is about just past middle of the pack in terms of national rank, number 73 in terms of yards per game given up on the ground. Hurricanes got to take advantage of that. Okay. Got to see the continued progression of Henry Parrish. Got to see Jalen Knighton used in the pass game and the run game a little bit. You got to be able to use those weapons in the run game. I think you got to be able to use those tight ends. Their coverage grades in terms of their linebackers are not great. The one good linebacker is Kalen DeLoach. He's a really good player in terms of pass coverage. He's not great in run support, but he's really good in pass coverage and pass rushing and tackling. So that's the advantage you're going to have. Their other linebackers, they got a 64.6. Bethune is a 64.1 in pass coverage. So they're average to below average in terms of their pass coverage grades. So got to try and match up backs and tight ends on those linebackers. I said this on the Wide Right podcast, Manny, you got to find the places where you have the matchup advantage and go after that and pick at it like a scab and just go after it and after it and after it until they force you to go to something else, and then something else will open up and then you attack them that way. I think this is what one of the things that Josh Gaddis has lacked all season is really that. It's finding the matchup opportunities and really taking advantage of it, for lack of a better word, and putting the ball in his playmakers' hands in a position where they have the advantage against the defender, either through formations, either through motions, through shifts, through single coverage, finding ways to get single coverage, or getting them open through route design and getting them in one-on-one situations where they can take advantage of the mismatch. And they haven't done that this season, and they sure as hell need to this season, this game. As far as who plays Jake Garcia or Tyler Van Dyke, either one, the key here is do not turn the football over. And I think defensively, the flip side of that is for this offense to be successful, I think the defense needs to create turnovers. I think there needs to be opportunities for the offense where they have a short field and they don't have to drive 80, 70, 65 yards to get in the end zone. If they can have a 30, 40 yard field based off of a turnover and push that ball into the end zone and not have to go for a long sustained drive of 8-9 minutes just to punch it in, I think that'll help the offense tremendously. And again, that also limits Florida State's possessions, which limits their explosive plays and limits their opportunity to score. So you want to try, if you can, create turnovers on defense, and on the flip side, try and stop committing turnovers on offense. That means don't throw errant picks, don't lose the ball, don't fumble the ball, don't shoot yourself in the foot by committing 17 penalties. I think the good thing is, and I mentioned this last week on this podcast, I said if there has to be a come to Mario moment instead of come to Jesus, where this team decides they're going to stop making mistakes and they're going to go ahead and play disciplined football. And I think they did that to a certain extent last week against Virginia. They cleaned up a lot of mistakes, didn't turn the ball over, not a lot of penalties, gave up some big plays, but held within the red zone, which I think was important, came back after being down. So there were a lot of positives coming out of that, spinning out of that Virginia game. I think the emotion after the win also The team rushing to Jake Garcia was, inspiring to me, or at least make me feel good, made me feel like this team still enjoys playing for each other, still sees the season in front of them, and sees the opportunity to make an impact in this game specifically. So don't turn the ball over. You got to be efficient in your offense. You got to make third downs when the opportunity presents itself. Live to play another day. Listen, if you got to punt it, you got to punt it rather than turn the ball over. I get it. Defense has got to play. If you can get short field off turnovers, we got to do that as well. But I think Florida State coming into this game is going to be, I think both teams are, but I think Florida State especially is going to be very emotional. They're going to be on fire. These guys really think they could come in here and beat the shit out of the Hurricanes. And I've seen it, and I know this because I've seen a couple of clips on YouTube, okay, from different podcasts, whether it be, journalist slash fan based podcasts, kind of like mine. I'm not a journalist at all, but I'm doing a podcast. I cover the team. What can I say? Anyway, and these are guys that cover the team and are very well known in terms of their space in Florida State podcasting. One of them, even the title of their video was Miami is asking for an ass kicking. Miami is asking to have their asses kicked. They basically said this team has got no emotion. There's going to be 700 fans at Hard Rock, 700 Hurricane fans, that the fans are looking forward to this team losing so they can boo them. And this team is primed to get their teeth kicked in. That's what they're ready for. That's what they want, what they deserve, what they've earned based on their play this season and based on who they are. And then only if Florida State comes in there and makes mistakes and plays undisciplined and does all this thing, will they have a dogfight in their hands where they have to scratch and claw and get the win at the end. Not even have a chance of losing. They're saying just scratch and claw to get a win at the end. They'll turn it into a war. Also heard a Florida State player on a podcast talking about how this is the best week of practice they've had. They've all been very hyped. Nobody's been on a knee. Defensive backs have been very active in the backfield, getting interceptions left and right like they never have, getting hands on footballs like they haven't had all season. And everyone, even the coaches, are hyped up leading into this matchup. So, why do I tell you all this? Not just to piss you off, not just to anger you as a Hurricanes fan, but to say that the Hurricanes are going to need to weather the early storm. If the Hurricanes can weather the storm of emotion and judo that shit, right? Use that emotion against Florida State. Use some of that eagerness to lead them into mistakes. Then I think they're going to have a very successful game, especially initially. You want to try and front run as if you're the Hurricanes. You want to try and build a lead and then hold on for dear life at the end. Because this is what they're good at. This is what we do with this team right now, or at least the last couple of years. And I think you can do that with catching Florida State off guard with maybe some reverses, some trick plays, a flea flicker early on, screens, things of that nature where their over eagerness is used against them defensively, and where they're maybe bait them into deep throws, where maybe the safety's baiting them into a throw and they can come over the top and make a pick. Those are opportunities that are there. If you could withstand that emotional storm and counter it by using that to your advantage, I think the Hurricanes should be all right. At least take the early lead and try and hold that and sustain that, and then make Florida State play from behind and put the pressure on Florida State. So, that being said, I believe the Hurricanes are going to win this game 27-23. Bold prediction, I know, by a Hurricanes fan. Couple more of the memories in the memory bank. Of course, this game specifically reminds me of this next memory because of the way the teams are sort of positioned in this game. In 2003, the Hurricanes, although they were ranked and Florida State was ranked, nobody gave Miami a chance to win that game at Florida State. Florida State was a higher ranked team. The Hurricanes, were with Brock Berlin, weren't playing all that great. They were undefeated, but not all that. And then Sean Taylor comes in and has 3 interceptions, has a game of his life. Jared Payton comes in and has a good game as well. And the Hurricanes steal a win in Tallahassee in a game that nobody anticipated us winning. And it was just so good to get that kind of a win. And I feel like this is that kind of a game where a lot of people, the majority of people, have left the Hurricanes for dead and believe that there's no shot that they win this game. And Miami comes in and shocks the Seminoles. And I think that's what we got, man. I think that's what we got. So here we go. Florida State, Miami, baby. Are you ready? Are you hyped up? Listen, those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'd appreciate if you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit me with some comments below. Tell me your favorite Florida State moments. If you're listening to it on the pod, hit me up on Twitter at MIA All Day Pod or at El Ledo 1307. That's ELLEDO 1307 on Twitter. Hit me with your favorite Florida State Miami moments. Hit me with your playlist for game day to get you hype. I've been tweeting out some Wu-Tang stuff, showing you guys what I'm using to get myself hype leading into this game. And also, maybe if you want to give me some cocktail recipes, some things that you like to use to get yourself hyped up leading into the game, because this is a 7:30 start, 8 o'clock start. We're gonna be drinking a little bit before this game, right, guys? We're gonna get things lubed up a little bit. We're gonna get the engine greased up, is what I'm saying. All right. I'm gonna give you a little tip. I make myself a dirty Arnold Palmer, and I've made this at tailgates, and I'm just gonna give you a little warning. It is dangerous because it's hard to taste. This is something that I drink it at home. I'm not telling you to drink. I'm not advocating drinking in any way. I'm not advocating drinking if you're over 21, under 21. Not advocating drinking and driving. Not advocating drinking to the extreme, either at home or anywhere else. These are all disclaimers that I am saying because I do not want to get sued for anybody maybe using this recipe. I'm not giving this recipe so you can try it and use it. I'm telling you what I do at home for me because I like to share what I do. So, that being said, my dirty Arnold Palmer begins with a base, and this base is very critical. This is the most important part. You need to have organic lemonade. I go with organic Publix lemonade. You can go with any organic lemonade you want. Organic, unsweetened iced tea, okay, or sweetened if you like a little sweet kick to it. Sweet tea vodka and regular vodka. Okay, I go Tito's and then some whatever sweet tea vodka I can find that I think is pretty good. You mix all those together. You get that Arnold Palmer, and it's called the Dirty Arnie because once it hits your lips, you're not going to taste that alcohol, not going to taste that vodka, and it's dangerous. That's why I tell you not to do it. Don't make it yourself. It's not a good idea. I'm just telling you what I do. It's dangerous. All right. Anyway, there we go. Florida State, Miami this Saturday night. Let's get it. Let's go Canes. Remember, subscribe, like, share. Make sure you try and help me out here. Get my follower count up, my subscriber count up, make my views go higher. And hopefully we'll be talking next week. And next time you hear me, we'll be on the Wide Ride podcast following a victory versus Florida State. Go Canes.